Good Friday, everybody. It's your host, Marlon Gardenera. You're listening to the Divided States of America show. Welcome to Friday's episode. It's going to be short. I have a very basic question. Obviously, time will heal the wound of me producing and directing this show, making the quality better, making the sound better, and growing an audience so that these conversations include you and include what you think about all of the issues we get to deal with in our divisive nation. But today's question is going to be very simple. I don't expect them to show up here, certainly not before we build an audience of people who understand and recognize that I want to hear your opinions. I will show you the utmost respect, and I will not focus on my disagreement with you. I'm going to focus on the fact that we're divided. And when I hear or talk to someone who's got a completely different perspective on life and on different subject matter that we all have to endure, my goal will be to find where we could go together. In order to do that, though, you have to have the other side of every issue. And I don't mind playing devil's advocate for them, but in this case, I really want to talk to them directly. So my question for this Friday is very simple. Certainly in light of last night's January 6th Select Committee hearing, Trump supporters, where are you? It's not a challenge for a debate. It's not an argument. It's a very simple question. Where are you? If you're keeping up with the hearings, what do you think? If you're not keeping up with the hearings, why aren't you? And based on the information that has reached you, just curious, what's your take? There are things to be learned from people who don't agree. Can't happen if the people we don't agree with aren't there to share it. So the invitation and question are clear. The question is, Trump supporters, where are you? And the invitation is clear. Go to thedsashow.com, thedsashow.com if you want to come on air and share your viewpoint as a Trump supporter. I know you're out there. Half of my friends are Trump supporters. Just curious, again, your take. Let's go ahead and get the show started.
Welcome to the Divided States of America show, where your host, Marlon Gardenera, takes on the most divisive issues in our divided nation. We'll sort through the best and worst of politics and culture, asking questions and looking for answers that our two-ring, two-party circus has failed to provide.
Thanks again for tuning in. You're listening to the Divided States of America show. We're on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and Twitter. We're here Monday through Friday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. That's the goal. That's the intent. You are certainly listening in on the early days where I'm figuring out a lot of things. I can tell you very soon I will launch the rest of the features. I'll clean up again the sound, the audio, all of the experiences you get. Or, for instance, I can't see myself right now. I'll clean all of those things up. Going to get a little help. And then we'll be reaching out to try to grow the audience as large and quickly as possible so that these conversations are occurring with lots of people with lots of different perspectives as we go towards a more united states. Now, here's the good part. Half of the people, not half, a good number of the people in America don't pay attention to any of it, and they're just good, hardworking people, and they're just trying to take care of their families. They want to go to work. They want to earn their money. They want to go on vacation. They want to spend their times at the beach, the lake, the river, all the different things Americans get to do, and we can appreciate that. They, to me, are the reason this experiment works. The people who aren't caught up in all of the mess, the people who literally, they wake up, it's a new day, they have their own challenges, they have their own families, they have their own world that they have to tackle, and they don't spend a bunch of time arguing with other people about it. Those are the people who actually make this work. They really are. Unfortunately, the media has to focus on something. I have to focus on something. So we look to the things that separate us. Now, we can't ignore them because the forces that oppose one another often make progress and get things that they're looking for. And if there's true opposition to that, it's typically at someone else's expense. So we have to be protective of that as we move forward. But yesterday, as we were covering the January 6th committee live, a concept came out in front of me, and I threw something out in response. The concept was oaths matter, truth matters, and character matters. And almost in an instant, it came to me that I remember when Colin Kaepernick, took a knee, and other football players and athletes followed. And I certainly remember all of the backlash, and I remember all of the people saying that they, in fact, weren't patriotic, and that the respect that they needed to show to our national anthem and what the national anthem symbolizes was critically important. Quite frankly, for a lot of people, it seemed to me that the symbolism and the support of the symbol was more important than the people that the symbol were supposed to represent. I remember that, not trying to rehash that. But I remember when Black Lives went out, shortly after that, all lives started to matter. There were chants for it, as if people couldn't just accept Black lives do in fact matter. They need to matter more. And whatever it is that's going on that would make people think that they need to scream that, would make people think they need to march that, what would you oppose about that? I remember the disgust that I felt when I had to keep hearing all lives matter. We know that. As a matter of fact, all lives matter so much that many of them don't need the same protections. All lives matter so much that many of them feel like they get justice. All lives matter so much they don't worry about the bias that is perceived, or the bias that exists when they commit a crime, and the fear that an officer might have when they encounter them versus someone else. Of course, all lives matter, but the calls specifically at that time were for Black lives. But yesterday, I gave that thought up. After watching the hearings and listening to the things that Trump did or didn't do according to the people closest to him. Again, I spent a couple hours today looking for Trump supporters who would put up clear and concise and respectful and thoughtful arguments about why this whole thing doesn't seem to make sense, or it's not fair, or it's not accurate. And I had a really, really difficult time doing it. I'm not going to lie to you. I even went to the places, because, a lot of Trump fans are no longer in love with Twitter, and many of them are not big fans of Facebook. And while I like to use Facebook because I think us older folk, I know you think this is blonde. It's actually starting to gray. Us older folk like to spend a little time on Facebook because there are more words than just pictures. I couldn't find that thoughtful, respectful support. I couldn't even find the disrespectful, dismissive people who just typically brush off any criticism of Donald Trump. I couldn't find it. And I'm pretty good with computers, and I certainly know how to search. Then I went to the places where everyone in different groups and communities and different pages, they openly support Trump. I even had to join a few groups where I had to say that I support Trump, I'm against Biden, and that I think Trump should be reelected, just to get into the group. And I was there looking for different opinions. In a divided nation, you need to hear both sides. I couldn't find it. So the challenge is out again. I don't have an expectation of lots of people jumping in and speaking on behalf of Trump, or even on behalf of their former support for Trump, because I have to imagine that there are a few people who've changed their mind based on the information that's been provided, and not provided by Democrats just going after him, or a typical hearing where one side grandstands and the other side gets its 5 minutes and they grandstand and it goes back and forth. And so few people are actually asking questions of witnesses who actually have information about the subject matter, that it's just a political show, and it really has nothing to do with investigating. Obviously, the perception of this particular investigation is that it is one-sided. There are only 2 Republicans on it. Please don't forget that Kevin McCarthy, the leader of the Republican Party in the House, decided to boycott the hearings because they wanted to put 2 people in the hearings. And, you'd think I would be better prepared and know both names, but I know one of them is Jim Jordan, the firebrand Republican that certainly loves his time behind the microphone and grandstanding. But I believe he may be part of this investigation. So the leadership of this particular committee said, we don't want committee members to be people that are going to be investigated. And the Republicans said, if we can't get who we don't want anyone. Subsequently, Donald Trump complained about that because he thought, well, we're not even hearing our side. Nobody's asking these people questions. There's no cross-examination. There aren't the things that you typically hear in a hearing. Again, most of the time you don't hear any real questions anyway. You just hear criticism and grandstanding. But those things aren't existing because the Republicans decided to stay out. So we get the Democrats questioning what happened on January 6th. Ironically, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger seem to be driving much of the discussion. They are Republicans. And again, last night we heard about what Trump didn't do, 187 minutes without demanding people leave the Capitol. Even when he did, he would suggest things like, we love you and you're special. I don't think those people were special. I don't think they did our country a service. I think the Capitol is a symbol like our national anthem. And I'm curious and want to be able to ask Trump supporters, if the flag is so important and we have to stand for it, how is the Capitol less important? How is where our lawmakers get together to try to assemble and maintain a government and create laws to protect us from one another and the ills and harms that we would do to each other if there were no guidelines? How is that symbol any less important? Or how do you choose which symbols are important to you and which ones aren't? And how we're all supposed to follow along and understand you need to like this one and you need to like that one, but you don't have to respect this one and you don't have to respect that one. Where is the guideline for that? The guideline I think we used to work on used to be little things like we the people or the Constitution. And it's kind of like scripture in the Bible. You have two people read it, they'll give you two entirely different interpretations. We understand that our Constitution is read and people have different interpretations, but there are some principles I know we all agree to. I can't imagine how the transfer of power isn't one of those things that we could typically agree to, and that we could have secret meetings and throw up fake electoral slates of people we want rather than the results of the actual elections with no evidence to do that, and somehow think that's constitutional and the route we should take, where in this case, that's the route that was chosen. So the hearings are going on, and it doesn't matter if I believe it or don't believe it. I'm more interested in hearing the people potentially who don't. I'm more interested in the people who believe in Trump. I want to hear from the people who think this is a witch hunt. I want to hear from the people who have very strong opinions to the contrary of what the media is reporting today, and contrary to the Republicans that worked in the White House with Donald Trump, contrary to what they said yesterday. I wrote in the intro, the social media post that you see when the show goes up, where are the Trump supporters? That's who I want to hear from. You can go to the dsashow.com, thedsashow.com. That will give you the ability to join us on air live. And again, I'm going to be honest, I don't have the expectation that a lot of people are going to do that. And know that I'm not here. It's not my job. It's not my role. It's not my responsibility to try to target you as if you're some criminal or have done something wrong. It's not the goal. That's not the point. That's not the purpose. I want to hear from you. Certainly I would have questions. TheDSAShow.com. That's where you can go speak up. Now, the expectation is that it's going to be similar to what I found when I looked on social media today. I couldn't find it. I couldn't find people saying anything. I mean, there was a comment here or there, but nothing substantial where I would think that a person wants to come on and have a respectful, thoughtful discussion so that people on the other side of this divide could understand how the actions of the president or the inaction of the president on January 6th makes sense. Now, I bring this up with something in mind. There was a poll that was taken. The information from that poll is posted here. I'm going to make it a little larger so you all can see it. PBS teamed up with someone to do a poll. The results are there. Now, I did find this. Well, because KPBS was one of the people doing the poll, it's no longer relevant, which I thought to myself, it's amazing that people are discredited instantly because of their like for or association to anything. I don't discredit Trump supporters just because they're Trump supporters. I have questions, but I also happen to have people that I love, people that I honor, people that I cherish, people that are dear to me, dear to my family, close to my children, who I know are Trump supporters, and I do not dismiss them. I can accept that we disagree. I can. Now, the question mark is, or the question here, half of the Americans think Trump should be charged with the January 6th crimes. I know the committee has to refer to the DOJ, and the DOJ, Department of Justice, has to determine if they think crimes have been committed, and they have to investigate. And I know they don't like to press charges on people, particularly a former president, unless they know or have a very, very, very high level of confidence that they could get those charges through. Well, on this particular poll, half of Americans think he should be charged, 45% do not. I want to hear from the 45%. What is it that's driving you to think that it would be reasonable not to charge Trump with a dereliction of duty, violating his constitutional oath? I'm just curious. I don't have the answers. I couldn't pretend to make them up, but I am curious and would love to hear from those people. Now, here's the other side of that. And I think this speaks to the confidence that we have in government, or the confidence that we have in our ability when there is a consensus to do something. Now, I don't call 50% a consensus. Don't get me wrong. But There are 50% of the people who think he should be charged with a crime, 45% who do not. However, the number of people that think Trump will be charged with crimes is 28%. The confidence that the 50% who believe he should be have that something will actually come of it and happen based on, hopefully, the evidence that they've heard is only 28%. 61% believe he will not be charged. I want more explanation for the divide. I don't want to argue. Not a debate. Not going to win or lose. Not the point. I just want to have a better understanding of how and why we are this way. Really. Now, the solutions still seem to be the same to me. We the people. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And how we manage to spend so much time trying to get in the way of that for other people is amazing. And how we tend to believe that what we think is best for us is best for all is saddening. How we divide to the point where we're angry at each other's throats, want to divide, want to attack a capitol, want to burn down a building in a riot. It's amazing how far from we the people we are. Now, I don't know that we ever were a we the people nation. There have always been the extremes, and they have always fought the other side. But the attempt, the effort, it's draining. But again, I said yesterday, I would trade Black Lives Matter for Oaths Matter. I think America would be better if we got back to the things that matter to us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Pledging allegiance, okay. Under God, not everybody believes. You see how these things start to break down. Indivisible, farthest thing from the truth. With liberty and justice for all, questionable, really questionable. So if we can't link ourselves to things that we all as school children stood up, put our hand on our heart and said, what can we link to? What I heard in the hearing yesterday that probably struck me most, beyond Secret Service agents covering Mike Pence, calling their families and saying goodbye because Trump tweeted out, Pence let us down, he failed us, in which people outside started screaming and chanting, hang Mike Pence. So the Secret Service agents charged with protecting him thought they might be harmed, obviously along with the vice president. What principles could we adhere to get back on track and go in the same direction, even if in theory, but really latch onto? And again, the three that I heard yesterday that shook me, they made me say I'd give up Black Lives Matter if we actually all could work towards these three things. Oaths matter. Police, administrators, governments, people in position of power who get to make decisions for us. If they took an oath and it mattered, if it mattered like the guy in Arizona, the Secretary of State, the election official who was called and told, hey, we want to give you a new slate of electors, please send that up. And he said, I can't. It would go against my oath. It goes against what I believe. I can't do that. Even if I supported the new group and would support the results of it, I can't do it. I took an oath. We need more people like that. Politically, I may not agree, but he still stood behind values and principles that we all can agree make a difference. Standing behind your oath when you take it makes a difference. Truths. Truth isn't determined by left or right. Truth isn't determined by Republican or Democrat. Truth is not determined by liberal or conservative. What we have done is become lazy enough to believe that it has. And exploring the truth is something that we often don't even make an effort to do. And the silence of Trump supporters is an example of that, where I can't find truth in their perspective if I can't hear it. I'm more interested in the truth than being right. I'm more interested in the truth than being slightly left of center. I'm more interested in the truth than at one point being a moderate Republican. I'm interested in the truth, which are a set of facts that are undisputable because that is the way it happened. I want that. I want to be able to go after that. Truth matters. So we could switch again from all lives, black lives, blue lives, to oaths matter. Truth matters. And then the final one, character matters. We watched Boris Johnson in the UK be removed from office because he had a credibility issue. He hired someone who he knew had sexual assault or sexual claims against them. He had parties in COVID when the government was forcing people to follow much tougher restrictions, similar to Gavin Newsom. He had parties in the residence of the prime minister. There were credibility issues. His own party got rid of him. We are so far from character mattering, but like truth, we're so quick to judge people's character by one identifier. I'm a Republican. Oh, don't like you. I'm a Democrat. Oh, can't stand you. We're so quick not to look for the truth that black or blue or all gets muddied up before we get to the actual point. We aren't working towards a more perfect union. Quite frankly, people who now call themselves patriots, I think, are patriots of Donald Trump. Patriotism for America would stand behind the principles, not all that founded us. Having slaves is not a founding principle. But writing a document that could be changed, writing a document that is held true, writing a document that, although interpreted differently, has the potential to still make this experiment the greatest. And I do believe we are the greatest country in the world, but I just don't know that we have many guiding principles that are even attempting to unite us anymore. What happened to American ideals? What happened to the idea or concept of right or wrong that we actually can agree on? Now, I hate to end on that note. There's so many wonderful things about America, and I really want you to remember the people who get up, go to work, come home, take care of their families, provide meals, provide love, support. They read, they walk, they exercise. Just the everyday regular Americans. They are the ones who make it work. The people on the extremes, the people that want to fight and fight and fight, they are the problem in America. The goal and effort of this show is to take us from the divided states of America, and I don't think that I'm going to make us united, but I think enough of us talking about that as a goal versus spending time on programs like this and on the radio and on television news and in newspapers and editorials fighting each other, if we could just look to the same goal. That's the goal of this show. That's the end of this show. You are listening to the Divided States of America show. I am your host, Marlon Gardner. We are here weekdays, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. We've got big goals, small audience today that will change. I've taken on several tasks in life where people doubted what we could accomplish. I can't think of anything I've ever had to do alone. I'm not alone in this either. But the goal is the same. Any doubt you want to have, come back, check us out in a couple of months. Come back and check us out when people start realizing there is someone out there, and there are people out there interested in a United States of America, interested in conversations to bring us together, not just those to divide us and profit. If I wanted to grow an audience and make more money quickly, I'd pick a side and just ride that horse. Nah, I'm going to be true to myself, true to my beliefs, true to my values, and do my best to talk about how we work together. I'll do that again next week, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, Twitter. I hope you continue to come back. I hope you continue to share it with your friends. I hope you share my same goal of working together. I appreciate you all tuning in today. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Until then, go create some joy stories. Go create some
And here
fun.
is your host, Marlon Gardner.
It's not your host. We already know who your host is. Go create some fun. And enjoy your weekend. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Divided States of America show. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to the channel and share this video with your family and friends. Thanks for